we're going to be talking about Marketing Plus. As far as Marketing Plus goes, we'll see how that fits into the overall Zoho offering. With Zoho, we have a lot of different applications and a lot of different products. And all of those different products are available a la carte as individual applications. We then have suites and platforms that bring those applications together into related offering or bundle or platform or whatever we want to call them. And that is what Marketing Plus is. Marketing Plus exists at that level. You then move up further, and then you have everything that gets brought together with Zoho One. And what we're going to be talking about ultimately is how these different marketing tools are fitting together to be able to help you do your marketing. There's always a lot of questions of integration. There's questions of how does data flow from one tool to the next to allow me to build my brand, drive sales, engage my customers, try to gather feedback from them, maybe reach out to get testimonials or case studies to update the website or sales references. All of these really important activities that marketers do. There's different tools then that fit there. So Zoho Campaigns is our kind of standard email marketing product. Zoho social marketing, where you are connecting in all of your different social channels to one common place. So you can post to all of those and manage all of those replies and all that engagement just from one centralized tool. There's marketing automation, which is like Campaigns is a big brother, where you're moving from more campaign-based emails, more say like a newsletter or just a random promo that you're blasting out, to building out customer journeys that have different inputs for why you're going to send out one message over another and try to, segment even further, do different scoring, potentially do lead nurturing that you're then passing to the CRM, or taking data from CRM over into marketing automation, so that way you can engage customers according to things that they've bought or things that you think they might want to buy. Survey, self-explanatory. It's a survey tool, really sophisticated, really great surveying tool that integrates in all the right places. PageSense is a website optimization platform, right? So you can embed it on your website, whether it's WordPress or Squarespace or what have you, and it basically is able to give you analytics, gives you heat maps, allows you to do A/B testing, personalization, all sorts of really neat stuff like that. Backstage, which is our event management tool. Zoholics runs on Backstage. So from the website that you went to get your ticket, the ticket buying process, the agenda that's hosted there, the way that we're delivering these presentations to you to be able to also, leave questions on them and all sorts of stuff is all done through Backstage. And then of course there's webinar, so you can have, online webinars. Additionally, when we think about marketing tools, there's some things that don't immediately fit into that because they're broader. And one example of that would be Zoho Analytics. Zoho Analytics is our BI platform, business intelligence platform. And what it is really good at doing is bringing in data from all sorts of different sources, whether it's from spreadsheets, proprietary databases, Zoho applications, third-party applications, what have you. It brings all that together into a repository where it can hold all that data. So now you can start blending and get cross-functional reporting, have really beautiful, cool dashboards that your boss loves. And despite the fact that you spent maybe tons of time doing it, his ultimate feedback is, hey, could that be blue? And you're like, yeah, it could be blue. And you make it blue and you move on with your day, right? Then there's also a tool like WorkDrive, which is able to hold all of our documents that we might need. As marketers, we are probably creating lots of content. There is Zoho Writer, which is a word processor that's connected to that, along with the whole other Office suite of tools. So you see that these things all get rounded out to being kind of a complete toolkit for a marketer. Now, as far as Marketing Plus goes, we are adding other tools as well. One tool that we've added, and which we'll talk about in more detail, is landing pages. Landing pages are obviously really important because we create campaigns, we create content, we need to drive them to a place where we now can convert them, usually to generate a lead, sometimes to make a sale, but landing pages are always essential to a lot of the campaigns that we do, and that is now available in Marketing Plus. So with Marketing Plus, we're ultimately trying to enable marketers to do the core things that they want to do, which is build loyalty or their brand, attract leads, win customers, engage them, like I said. And we want to do this in a way that allows this tool to be centralized, comprehensive, and coherent to make the job of a marketer easier, because as we know, it is not always the easiest position to be in when you're responsible for bringing in leads, when you have to answer for the money that you're spending, when you have to try to explain to the sales team that just because you're not on a call at every minute of the day doesn't mean you're not working, right? So there's a lot of things that are going to be really important. Trying to think beyond just the tools and start thinking about some of these use cases, here's just a few examples of some of the things that we can accomplish with Marketing Plus. We can create goals on our website. So we want to say that our goal is ultimately for people to click a particular button. We can set that up in PageSense to say we want people to click the button, and we can now measure how effective we are at getting people to click that button, whether that's a part of a funnel that involves multiple clicks or multiple steps to get there, or really just trying to understand, if it's a form, for example, how many people are abandoning the form before they're clicking that button that we want, right? How many of them get to our fourth field on the form and are just completely dropping off and our success rate is dying? That is one example of something we could do in Marketing Plus. Another example is nurturing leads with automated journeys. This, again, is something that can be done in marketing automation. You can push lead data that you gather directly to marketing automation. And with that, marketing automation is a multi-channel tool. You can integrate surveys into that. You can integrate SMS messages into that. You could integrate webinar invites into that. So all of that could be built in using some of those other tools in the Zoho Marketing Plus toolkit. Additionally, retargeting customers with automated journeys, turning organic posts into ads and tracking ROI. There is no direct integration in Zoho to an ad manager in the sense that you create the ad in Zoho and push it out. But what you can do is post something organically, see that it maybe has some traction, then go to a Facebook or a LinkedIn and now promote that post beyond. And as you generate the data, or as the results rather, from that campaign, you can export that out of the ad platform that you're using, bring it into Zoho, and now you can kind of close the loop on how things are performing. Finally, identifying fans of your brand. If you're sending out surveys, you can send out things like an NPS survey, figure out who your promoters are. You maybe route those survey responses to your marketer so that they can follow up with them, and you can start doing, good work to understand why you're so successful and make sure you're using those stories to reach more people. So, for the next part of the session, we're going to focus on Studio. Brand Studio allows us to kind of drive these themes home of things being centralized, comprehensive, and coherent. The fundamental idea of Brand Studio is that it's a way for our marketing teams to be able to organize the work that they're doing. And it works under the assumption that a campaign is ultimately a project. And if we want to have successful campaigns, if we want them to go out on time, if we want to know what is the work that's required, if we want to know who's doing that work, if we want to know what the budget was for that campaign, we can treat it like a project and we can have a centralized place that we can collaborate on that. So that's fundamentally what's happening here in Studio, which again is allowing us to have that end-to-end planning and execution, multiple campaigns, having campaigns that are reaching across different channels. So maybe we're saying that this campaign is not just simply sending out an email, but it's actually going to be maybe sending out a drip campaign that we talked about, or it's going to have an email component, but it's also going to bring in a social media component. Maybe it's also going to bring in a webinar. So we're hitting multiple fronts at once in this effort to achieve some goal of either, building up our brand, making people more aware of a particular product, driving sales at the end of the quarter, what have you. And with that, in this Studio tool, we're able to see the activities and the tasks, and we're able to track real-time progress and analyze and measure performance so we can continue to improve. There's also some really nifty things like this discussion tool where we have a thread where we can post about what's going on. Sometimes you can't always get them to talk to you on the phone or on the whatever the chat app is that you use, or Microsoft Teams or whatever it is. Sometimes, you'd rather do literally anything else than get on another Zoom call, right? So having some different ways that we can communicate but having those communications tied to the campaigns that we're working on, the projects that we're working on, that can really go a long way to, pulling the team together. I mentioned that the studio tool, with the campaigns that we can make, it can allow us to do things across channels. So for example, if we created a campaign, we can choose the different kinds of activities that we want here, from email campaigns to social posts, as I've said, to being able to test A/B testing on our website, or split URL testing, or building out some different personalization on our website. We can really look at a lot of these different components. And then, of course, there is also offline things as well. So newspaper ads, radio ads, trade shows, all sorts of things like that. I don't see snail mail in here, but Zoho actually does our fair share of this as well. We send mail to people by like the millions. And of course, once we have this concept of a campaign being a project, we can really start to leverage and adopt standard project management concepts like Kanban boards, right? You'll find that they're going to talk a whole bunch about Kanban boards in the projects track, but Kanbans are also a big part of how we're doing things in Studio. There's different reporting that is also available. And a quick note about this, because there are different reports in different applications. If you look in the CRM, for example, or if you look at, what Raju was talking about this morning with reporting, he was in the CRM, he was using Zia, and we were building reports by, just kind of asking for the AI to build the report. The report that was being created was using CRM data, right? And so when you look at different applications, you'll find they each have their own reporting module. And that is really helpful because you have a lot of out-of-the-box information that's relevant to that particular domain or business function. And ultimately, as I mentioned a little earlier, analytics is a separate analytics or BI tool that is able to pull in the data from all of those other sources, so you can start combining them, start looking at much longer term data, start looking at much bigger data sets. And that's really the value of having something like analytics. Well, analytics gets brought into here to make things more contextual. So you see, this is kind of the third step in that process. Calendars, obviously super important, and having a unified calendar that allows us to take a step back and see the overall picture is really important, so we can see what we're doing across all these channels and we can get a view of what's happening. And I'm going to show you a little bit of Studio. So what we have here is just our standard view when we are in this, and we can see the different campaigns that we're working on. We can see what is the objective of this campaign, the type of campaign that we're doing, who owns the campaign, and we can see some dates and maybe different markets or areas that we're trying to apply this to. For example, we have this completed campaign that was a global campaign, but this campaign that was targeting people in San Diego. So we can do a whole bunch of different things. And when we get into an individual campaign, we start to see a number of these pieces here, right? Where we started this and we have a whole timeline and the different pieces that have happened. We have statuses around something being a draft or it not being started at all. And we can see who's the owner of that task. Sometimes it's hard to know exactly what's going on and you want to have a good sense of what's happening. And it's nice to just be able to have a tool that shows that there's going to be a basic level of accountability that we can all keep up with. Obviously, timelines can change and we can be flexible, but being able to just have a clear idea of, hey, this isn't started, that's very, very helpful. So as we, look at something like this, there's a lot more that we can dig into, like a to-do list. This is where the Kanban comes in. There's nothing in here, of course. And we even have stuff like budget summaries. So let's find maybe a completed campaign that actually has some information. All right, well, not so much. Nevertheless, we can see at least that there was a planned budget, so we just don't know how much we spent or at all what happened. That would be something we could follow up on. One thing I do want to point out is that when we create a new project, for example, we can say that this is going to be for our travel site, and this is going to be for like our Houston travel campaign. We're trying to get people here so they'll go to Zoholics. And we can say that, we're trying to, do demand generation. We have a launch date that's going to happen in a couple weeks. And we can say that we're targeting this at Houston. So we can create this, and now we can start adding different aspects or activities to what it is that we want. So maybe we want to have an email campaign, and this is going to be the Houston email launch, I guess, for lack of a better example for you. And we'll have a name, and we'll go ahead and start drafting. Now, we've basically just been dumped into Zoho campaigns, even though we are still sitting in Marketing Plus. So we're going to be able to go ahead and create our email campaign right from here. Now, you'll notice that on the left-hand side, this black bar on the left, there are different tools that are listed there. And if I go to campaigns, I'll be able to go in there and create a campaign. But instead of that, why not just be able to have my project show, this is the time I want this to happen, create it, and start working on it right here. So that's basically what we're doing. So this is going to be a marketing project. We're going to say this is a simple email. And you see, we're already basically doing all of the stuff that we would normally be doing in Zoho campaigns. This is the same for using those surveys that I talked about, for using the webinar that I talked about. All of those options that were sitting there in all of those activities are being pulled in, so we have this comprehensive and coherent way that we're trying to approach the work that we're doing. We also have things like our calendar, as I said. One thing that I think is really neat about this calendar that really would anticipate the kinds of things that I work on, being able to look at the week, the month, and the quarter. Because sometimes you're like, oh man, this week is busy, but what are we doing next month? What are we doing for this quarter? How are we going to, justify all these activities and this money that we've spent? So having those views, I think is really, really nice. It's just a simple little quality of life feature, but I think it really does make a big difference. And then of course we can zoom in on the calendar or filter through the calendar depending on the different kinds of activities that we have, whether it's social media, it's email marketing, it's a survey that we have planned. We can move through and look at that, or we can just kind of look at the entire, brand calendar. So I asked this question, how do we take this further? We've seen that we're able to pull it all together. So the question that I'm kind of leading here is the AI question. What if we're able to use AI to be able to assemble these campaigns for us based on a simple prompt, where we say, this is the kind of campaign I want to run. Can you help me get started with that? So that is what I have a little video here to show you, where we're creating the campaign just like I showed you. We're entering in the campaign duration. We're selecting the channels that we want to use: email, social, SMS, blog, video. We're selecting a demographic that we're looking to target, or a location, ages. We're typing in custom criteria, ultimately working professionals. And we're saying what we want to do, which is promote a smart travel service that's luxurious to Texas. We hit go, and it's laid one out for us. Now, obviously, we can go in here and make all sorts of additional adjustments. We can change the dates. We can refine our prompt. We can keep certain things and throw out other. But just being able to that quickly get work going, get ideas going. Feel like a lot of working in marketing is throwing spaghetti at the wall, seeing what's going to stick. Sometimes you're like, man, I'm completely out of ideas today. Let's hit this magic button, see what happens, right? That's another way that we can go about it. So this isn't necessarily the foolproof plan of you've put this completely on autopilot and it's just, doing whatever, but it is a way of trying to, again, take a more comprehensive and coherent approach to the work that we're doing. Is this a little cooler than what we looked at a moment ago? And there are some additional cool things that we're bringing in, such as team communication. Click is our team communication platform that has the channels, the one-to-one chats, the one-to-many chats, the audio calling, the video calling, the mobile app, the thing that drives you crazy at 8 p.m. at night because someone has some weird problem that you didn't anticipate, or it's the thing that you're checking immediately when you wake up because you're addicted to your phone and you need some help. That's a me thing. Ultimately, this is something that we have as a standalone product, but it's something that's available in Zoho 1, it's available in Workplace, but it's something that we're bringing in to Marketing Plus as well, so teams are able to communicate, collaborate, and then have different channels for the different work that they're doing, being able to bring in different assets that we're sharing across these chats, having some reports as well. So that's another kind of piece that I mentioned early on, which is, you have things like Analytics, WorkDrive that kind of go beyond the initial set of marketing tools, and Click is another good example. So that's another thing that we've added. But what else do we offer? We'll talk now a little bit about Zoho landing page. The whole idea of a landing page is ultimately that when you are having a campaign and you are sending traffic to your website, you want to have a very targeted, focused place for people to land. You don't want to set them loose on your website, on your homepage, because there's any number of things they could click, any number of things they could read, and it might just be way too distracting. So instead, we want to send them to a simpler version of our website that is extremely focused on one thing, such as the product we're trying to get them to buy, the mailing list we want them to sign up for, the ebook that we want them to download, what have you. So ways that we can use landing pages, generally, like I said, they're going to be an essential part of the lead generation campaigns that we're doing, or any real campaign usually. They can be used across channels, whether we're trying to drive SEO and we have targeted pages that we're trying to get to rank, so that way we can, attract some traffic and generate a lead, whether it's a paid thing that we're doing like a Google ad and we send them to a landing page, something that we're sending from an email or social or what have you. They should always have a particular goal. Generally, it's usually filling out a form, giving us some information. In the case that you are a B2C business, it's probably just to buy a product directly and just make that sale happen. And generally speaking, these should be customized for the audience that we're targeting and for the products that we're trying to sell. And beyond that, we can conduct all sorts of experiments to optimize those pages. So I'm going to show a few things here that kind of give us a sense of what landing page looks like. So I'm back here in Marketing Plus, our old friend, and I'm not going to look at Studio anymore. Instead, I'm going to landing page. And just so we have a sense of what we are looking at, we can pull up an old version or an old landing page that we created. And this was the landing page for our tourism group, where it was focused on a tour in a very particular place that I cannot even pronounce. It is a place I have never been, clearly. And at the bottom of the page, what is there? There's the thing that I said. There is some kind of goal. There is some kind of form. There's some kind of way that we can drive a lead. And there's two different versions of it, which is pretty handy for me, because you see one of the forms is a little more complicated. One of the forms is very simple. So depending on what it is that we are doing, we can use different forms and customize them accordingly. So we'll go ahead and hit a new page so we can create something new. And the use case that we're doing is we want to have a landing page where we're promoting an ebook, because the ebook is the classic way that we say, I'll give you this ebook if you give me your email address, so that way I can hound you unmercifully until you buy something from me, right? So what we'll do is we'll go through these different categories and we'll look at some of the different templates that exist. And I am just going to take a risk and pick this one. And this is going to be our Texas travel guide landing page. And we'll go ahead and start it. So immediately what's going to happen is we're going to have this template that we are going to then start to customize. And once we're here, we can start making all the changes that we want. So the first thing we might want to do is change out this image with something that reflects the content that we're doing. I did this already to make this demo work. So we're going to go ahead and insert this, and we have our lovely little image. From here, we can customize some more images and we can change different fonts and colors. But I am going to go ahead and change this headline. And obviously, I can do this the good old-fashioned way where I use my brain, and I can come up with some fun copy, or I can hit my fun little Zia Content Assistant button, and it will give me some different suggestions for a a similar title. And you could use this as a prompt in itself, so you can kind of type in whatever your little prompt is, hit suggestion, and it'll try to give you some ideas. So that's the first thing that we can do. Another thing that we can do, and this maybe kind of gets immediately to some like maybe advanced or just really cool stuff, however you want to say it, is we can make this text dynamic. What does that mean? It means that we can use a little piece of code in our URL that leads to this page and change that word depending on the little bit of code in that URL. We're talking about maybe some campaigns targeting creatives. Maybe that's the operative word that we're using in our ad. But maybe we also want to use the word designers. Maybe we also want to use the word artists, so we can target more people that might respond to those different terms. What happens if I say artist, I bring you to my landing page and it now says designer? There's a little bit of a slip. It's not a big slip, but it is a little bit. And if you know that people are going to respond to a particular word, keep using that word. So in the link that you're putting in your content, you can have a little bit of code in there. It's just a little slash. You know those crazy codes you see where you copy and paste something from like New York Times or something, and it's like the craziest link you've ever seen? You can make a smaller, cooler, less crazy version. But basically in that, it can pass a little bit of information to landing page to say, update that word to say creative, or update that word to say artist. Pretty cool, right? Pretty neat. So we can do that kind of thing. Additionally, as I've talked about, we need to be able to customize this form. And so we can click here and we can do that form customization. We can go ahead and edit the form. We can add in new fields. We can make some of them mandatory. We can do a whole bunch of different cool things. One of the things, though, that we want to happen is that when somebody submits this form, we want a certain action to happen. So we're going to go down to this little area and we get a few different options. Do we want to redirect them to a page of our website after they submit the form? Do we want to send them to a random URL that we have? Do we want them to download a file? So if we're doing that ebook giveaway, they give us their email. We want them to be able to download the file. The PDF of our ebook is where we're going to insert it right there. So we have that, and we can go ahead and do some other nifty things with the form that I just don't have time to show you. But nevertheless, it's pretty cool. So we've gotten a couple of these key parts figured out for our landing page. Some content, some AI-generated content that can help us out, being able to customize our form, being able to have dynamic updating content depending on the campaign that we're running. What else can we do? Well, we can integrate all of this so that every time somebody fills out this form, it goes into CRM, or it goes to campaigns, or it goes to marketing automation. And we can then, of course, start tying together whatever our larger processes are. And to do those integrations, we're basically going to use this little button, and we're going to select the service. We're going to map the fields of our form to the different service that we're using. So for example, we say, hey, email field here, email field there, and we can do something like that, no problem. So all of those integrations are there. Additionally, we can do some other real fun stuff like A/B testing and personalization. So A/B testing allows us to run little experiments where we share two different versions or even more of the same page to different sets of people to run a little competition to see which one performs better. So we know that this change was the one that's the most effective one that we can then apply for a more general purpose, right? So when we're doing A/B campaigns, the big tip I want to give you is be very specific with what you're testing. Because sometimes we want to make wholesale big changes, but then how do we know what our control variable is? How do we know what is actually causing the change in response? So if we were doing an A/B test, we might just focus on just one headline or one piece of our design or testing out the different color of a button, right? We want to make sure that we have a measurable or consistency in the test, so that way we can actually see what it is that we're testing. In addition to that A/B testing, there is personalization as well. So we could create different versions of the same landing page for people who have seen it once or then came back to it later, or for people who live in California versus Texas, or people who, I don't know, are coming to it on a mobile device versus coming it from the desktop. There's a lot of different criteria we can use that allows us to trigger different kinds of personalization where we're updating the entire page, basically. All right. Thank you so much.